Where do I even begin? We live in crazy times. Thank you. There's the book, American Muckraker. You're holding it up. American Muckraker just released this book, American Muckraker. But I'm here to talk about something very important and something quite serious as I make an announcement here, with all of you in a few minutes. We've done a lot of stories about CNN over the last 5 years. And a very special thing happened this month. Jeff Zucker resigned from CNN. But I want to play a few clips to remind you of the things that we've done before I bring out a very special guest. This is a story we did just this past year on CNN. Control room technical director named Charlie Chester. I want to play a clip or two from what we exposed.
I think we got him through this term. We would always show shots of him jogging, him in aviator shades, and like you paint him as a young geriatric.
We were creating a story there that we didn't know anything about. So that's I think that's propaganda.
Charlie Chester calling the network propaganda. They call themselves the most trusted name in news. Listen to this. You all saw this clip saying that COVID was gangbusters for the ratings.
COVID, gangbusters of ratings. COVID, gangbusters of ratings.
Also talking about the death toll on the screen, saying that they want more people to die so the ratings can go up at CNN. Horrible stuff caught on a hidden camera back in April of this past year.
Which is why we constantly have a death toll on the side. Let's make it higher. Like, why isn't it high enough, today? Like, it would make our point better if it was higher.
Make our point better if more people died from COVID, says Charlie Chester. And this is a really interesting moment at Project Veritas. I think of all the things we've done, people say, what's one of our favorite stories? I love this moment because it exposes how horrible they are. See, at the end of the day, it's all about fear. What is going to change things? It's people ceasing to be afraid and ceasing the approval of the powers that be, that have the power to affect your reputation. Now, this man says it's all about fear. He says, quote, fear drives ratings.
Like, fear really drives numbers. Fear is the thing that keeps you tuned in.
If it bleeds, it leads. Yeah.
If it bleeds, it leads?
Yeah. No one ever says those things out loud, but it's obvious.
No one ever says those things out loud. Fear. It's all about fear. Very revealing moment. Now, after we did this story, one of the biggest in our history, Twitter banned us. Twitter banned me for quoting CNN. Why didn't Twitter ban CNN? I'm not the one who said these things. Misinformation. Well, you could see their lips moving, so I'm not sure what you mean by misinformation. I didn't make any claims. Now we're not even on Twitter, although what's interesting about that is almost every story we've done since April is trended on Twitter, even though we're banned on Twitter. So let me fast forward. We've done a lot of stories on CNN over the last 5 years. You all remember this one. They'll never say these things publicly, but they'll say them privately.
Hey, man. We met in Palm Springs a few years back.
Good to you, man. You good?
Yeah. How you been? What are you doing?
Good.
What do you think's going to happen this week? I mean, with the whole Russia thing.
The Russia thing is just a big nothing burger.
Russia thing, a big nothing burger. He's talking about Trump and Russia. Welcome to CNN, home of the nothing burger, Van Jones. But these people, what the O'Keefe video a hoax? I'm not sure what's a hoax about it. You could see that was the raw clip that we played. And we've done other stories about people inside CNN engaged in unfortunate acts. This man was a producer for Rick Salibi. He was soliciting pictures of his fiance's underage daughter. He resigned from CNN in December after we exposed what was going on there. And we confronted Rick Salibi like we always do. They used to do this. They used to confront people in the street. Journalists used to sort of, be adversarial and expose the powers that be. And now they just all work in concert with the powers that be. And that's not really how journalism ought to be. Journalism is exposing what powerful people do not want published. When they relay to you what they do want published, that's called public relations. That's not journalism. So we've done all these stories through the years, just some headlines of the things that we've done, resignations at CNN. CNN thinks it's fine. Jeff Zucker acted like nothing happened. But in the course of doing this, I met a man named Kerry Porch, one of our whistleblowers, came on stage 2 years ago. And Kerry was a whistleblower at CNN. He said he had to record what was going on inside the network. He felt compelled to do it. He said, I have no choice, James O'Keefe, but to secretly record my colleagues.
I decided to wear the camera because I didn't see any other option, because I noticed that I was in a very unique position in space and time to just do something to protect the Republic.
And one of the men that Kerry recorded was actually not a bad guy. He was CNN's Washington Bureau manager of field ops. His name was Patrick Davis. He sort of said the things that you might say. He was an unwitting whistleblower. He worked at CNN for 25 years, and this is recorded at a DC restaurant. Listen to what he says about the most trusted name in news.
I'm not super thrilled with what we do. All we gotta do is take an anchor and put them at the desk and tell the news. We're so busy trying to get appointment viewership. Well, and you learn that in journalism school. We're supposed to be middle of the road. That's our job. Now it's just infotainment. That's all it's become.
Just infotainment is what Patrick Davis says. He also talks about Jeff Zucker in this undercover meeting. Again, he does not know that he's being recorded by one of our undercover people who works at CNN.
95. I've been here for a little while. I hate seeing what we were and what we could be and what we've become. It's just awful. And the buck stops with him. And like we've had other presidents. Like I've been through so many presidents now. Some that are just so hands off that you don't even hear from them for a month. You know what I mean? He's involved every day, has a plan, whatever. I just don't agree with it. I haven't listened to 9 a.m. call in about 15 years. Okay. I just stopped.
Speaking of the 9 a.m. call, Veritas, by the way, has sources everywhere. We have people everywhere. People say, what's next? I say, what is not next? You name it, we got people, Defense Department, Department of Justice, education, everywhere, including still inside network news. And someone gave us the dial-in for the Jeff Zucker conference call. And we listened to that and recorded it for 2 months. And then on the 61st day, I said hello to Jeff Zucker.
You're unmuted.
Hey, Jeff Zucker, are you there? Hey,
Yes.
This is James O'Keefe. We've been listening to your CNN calls for basically 2 months, recording everything. Just wanted to ask you some questions if you have a minute. Do you still feel you're the most trusted name in news? Because I have to say, from what I've been hearing on these phone calls, I don't know about that. I mean, we got a lot of recordings that indicate you're not really that independent of a journalist.
Okay. Thank you for your comments. So everybody, in light of that, I think what we'll do is we'll set up a
new system. I'm surprised he talked to me. That, by the way, if you if you set up the new systems, we'll just get on your new system, Mr. Zucker. Zucker resigns from CNN, and now it comes out some unethical things that may have occurred. Apparently, a symbiotic relationship with Andrew Cuomo, and all these things that have happened. So, I want to make an announcement in 1 minute, and someone's going to come on stage and say something very profound to you. I'm not sure this has ever happened before in this way. Going back to the case of Patrick Davis, who worked at CNN for 25 years, Kerry Porch, who recorded him, felt guilty about doing so. It was an important story. We did the story, but Patrick Davis is not a bad guy. And in November of this past year, federal agent showed up to my house, raided my home, and took my phones. And it was a grossly unconstitutional action, maybe even against the law, for the Department of Justice to do that to a journalist who had the audacity to receive a document from a source and try to corroborate it. So we live in dystopian times. But people here will say, well, what can I do? How can we change it? Some of you are so cynical, you say, well, nothing ever happens to these people. No one will hold them accountable. Okay, well, with that attitude, nothing will happen. But there are a lot of good people in these institutions who need to speak up, who need to be brave, who need to do something, who need to expose them. And that's not a political mission. It's a one of revelation, exposing the reality of things, more maybe even an artistic mission more than it is political. Patrick Davis, 25-year veteran of CNN, was recorded by Kerry Porch, was brought into CNN's headquarters. And in some other cases, people have recanted their statements. Patrick Davis stood by his statements when he gave a talk at CNN headquarters. And people actually applauded him.
And everyone applauded. I was shocked. I mean, I owned my words.
You owned your words, and they applauded you for it at CNN.
Right.
Patrick Davis, I sat down with, and the 25-year veteran, the man who's worked in the Washington, D.C. bureau at CNN, doing stories on Obama, Biden, all throughout the years, has just today, this week, accepted a position as executive producer for Project Veritas. Patrick, come on stage.
It's me.
He's here today.
Thank you. It's great to be back in Florida where people still believe in freedom. Always love visiting here. So yes, as James just said, I worked at CNN for a very long time. 25 years, I had a front row seat to history covering politics in the Washington bureau of the largest news gathering organization in the world. And now I'm the executive producer of Project Veritas. Truth is truly stranger than fiction sometimes. Now, I'm sure a lot of people are scratching their heads right now, wondering, how James and me could become friends after they so publicly threw me under the bus 2.5 years ago. But it's actually a funny story. The night before my video was published, it went viral, and Donald Trump Jr. retweeted it, and everyone else retweeted it. James called me seeking comment, as he does with every story he does. And we actually had a really good, heartfelt conversation. I mean, everyone thinks he's the boogeyman and scared of him. And, we actually had a really good conversation about journalism and ethics. But at the end of the day, I said, I'm not going to talk to you. I'm finishing out my contract. What little he didn't know is I was actually getting to retire 2 months later. I was walking away from journalism after 25 years. It was an amazing career. And I really actually did love the majority of my time there. But they kind of stole my Jerry Maguire moment. I was planning on writing this, the whole thesis on, journalism 101 and the importance of the Fourth Estate. And I was going to, grab the cute girl and the goldfish and walk out the door. maybe not the cute girl. But anyway, so as James said, I owned my words. I stood up at a big managers meeting. After they'd been dropping tapes for a few days, and I stood up and I said, look, I own what I said. I don't apologize for it. I've worked here for 25 years, blood, sweat, and tears. I pulled a George Costanza during the Reagan funeral and actually slept under my desk for about an hour. So anyways, I basically told him, look, at the end of the day, if you publish this, we're done. We can continue to have a conversation or not. But if you publish it, I'd much rather you not. I've been through a lot in my life. I've had a lot of, personal tragedy in my life, and I just really wanted to walk away quietly. And unfortunately, Project Veritas didn't allow that to happen. So anyways, we go our separate ways. And a few months later, he's texting me. He's like, "Hey, did you see I broke into Jeff Zucker's conference call?" So I would just screenshot the cover of the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, and send it back to him.
You got to earn my trust. And you haven't done that yet. So after a couple of years of these smart-ass texts going back and forth, I'm sitting on my couch one night, getting ready to watch a movie. My phone starts blowing up. And I look down, it's James. Why aren't you at work right now? Yeah, I gave you an assignment, and you didn't finish your assignment. I'm here doing your assignment for you. And I just laughed, and I'm like, hey, dude, you got the wrong guy. So I said, you know what? We've been kind of going back and forth for a couple of years. Why don't we sit down and have a conversation? He was like, hey, I'm actually going to be, in Annapolis for a wedding this weekend. Why don't we meet? So we did. And we sat down for, a solid 2 hours, and we talked about everything under the sun. We probably spent maybe 5-10 minutes on my situation, and he explained, how difficult it was. They stayed up late that night trying to decide whether or not to publish my stuff, because I was like, I'd rather you not. I'm getting ready to walk away from this. And, but we really didn't spend that much time on that. We actually talked about life and love and loss and heartbreak and literature and being on the water. We're both big boaters, and so we kind of bonded on that. And sure enough, a few days later, I ended up in New York, meeting the rest of the team. He said, why don't you just come up and meet everyone and see how this goes. For anyone who has ever uttered the words, Project Veritas is this nefarious right-wing conspiracy theory group that selectively edits videos, I am here to tell you today that is unequivocally false. I know journalism, and I know good journalism, and the people at Project Veritas are some of the most dedicated, hardworking people I've ever met. They love our country. They love the First Amendment. They love seeking the truth. And it's not easy working there. I mean, our undercover journalists have no life. A lot of us do. I mean, 12 to 20-hour days, pretty typical at Project Veritas. And we've broken some, pretty big stories since we've been there. But what I found is we're all from all walks of life, races, religions, beliefs, right? Life experiences. The beauty of Project Veritas is everyone there, regardless of what your title is, has a seat at the table. Everyone's got a voice. Regardless of whether you agree, disagree, you're not afraid to speak up. I had more conversations about ethical journalism in my first week at Project Veritas than I did in probably my last 10 years of my network career. We discuss it daily. If anyone wants to know what Project Veritas is about, just look at our mission statement and our core values. They're published on our website. I invite everyone to go look at them. We live by those standards every day. And yeah, we're going to make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. But when we do our best to rectify it as quickly as possible. The other thing about Project Veritas that's great is we like to have fun. And a lot of people don't understand, how we can go from dropping a huge story like the DARPA, COVID gain of function story, which was a huge story. I mean, it was a big break in, trying to get to the bottom of the truth of what happened 2 years ago. We dropped that story, and a few days later, we're in Miami having a dance party, right? Because that's how we do it. We love to have fun. We love to do serious journalism, but we don't take ourselves too seriously, and that's a huge difference, and it's very refreshing. Before I walked on stage today, very few people knew that I was going to be here. I was talking to an old childhood friend, and I was like, hey, I'm going to work at Project Veritas. He was very happy for me. I mean, he's a fan. But he's like, really? You're like, why would you leave the comforts of retirement? You realize they just got raided by the FBI, right? To which I simply replied, I'd rather die on my feet than live on my knees. Most people would run away from a situation like this. The FBI blowing into doors of journalists. Most people would run away from that. I ran towards it. That was one of the biggest, if not the biggest, abridgments of the First Amendment I've ever witnessed. And if anyone who knows me and knows my heart and knows how I feel, I am truly passionate about the Constitution, especially that First Amendment. Without that First Amendment, there's a reason why it's first, right? Our founding fathers knew. So yes, I told my friend, this is either crazy or it's genius, or maybe it's a little of both. Now look, being center stage like this isn't easy for me. Now I've lived a very, very private life throughout my career on purpose. I always remain behind the cameras for a reason. I wanted to keep my personal life, my professional life, separate, mainly to protect my family. I've got a young daughter. But for the past 2 years, in retirement, I've been kind of just sitting back and watching this crazy, bizarro, dystopian world that we're living in right now, where people are afraid to go out of their houses. I mean, it's crazy to me. I never stopped living my life. I mean, I was out on the water every day and paddleboarding and everything else. Governor's like, you can't do that, and I did it anyways. But when a grandmother in Canada is peacefully protesting and gets trampled by police on horseback, when the FBI raids the homes of journalists, enough's enough. It's time to stand up. Yes, this has been a nightmare for all of us, but my heart truly breaks for the children. What they've had to endure is insanity. Children aren't meant to be in isolation. As adults, we're supposed to pass down a better world to the next generation, and we failed our children miserably in the last 2 years. So when people ask me why I'm doing this for my daughter. I'm doing this for her friends. I'm doing it for every kid who's had to suffer wearing a mask all day in school, while the elites of the world go gallivanting around at the Super Bowl, however they feel. The same people who put these bizarre policies in place, it's rules for thee, but not for me, right? We've heard that time and time again. I could easily stand up here and throw a bunch of red meat at this crowd all day long about politics and the media, but I'm not here to spike the football. I'm not here to say, I told you so. Though Jeff Zucker, I told you so. I'm here to reach out to all journalists, all of my friends at CNN, Fox, ABC, CBS, NBC, The Washington Post, and everyone in between. We need to do our jobs. There's an appetite for good, credible, middle-of-the-road journalism, where we go out and seek the truth. When we got the DARPA documents, people were like, well, how did you guys get those? We got them because people feel they have nowhere else to go. They don't know who else to turn to, but to turn to Project Veritas. These massive news organizations with billions of dollar budgets and huge staffs, and here we are, tiny little Project Veritas breaking this major story in January. The fact of the matter is, 2 years into this pandemic, we still don't have answers. No one's been held accountable. We used to run to the podium with our mics in hands, asking the people in power the tough questions. Now we stand in front of the podium with a megaphone, blasting what the people in power want to hear to the people at home. That's not journalism. That's propaganda. It's time for us to get back to the basics of journalism. Just put an anchor at a desk and tell the news straight. No agendas, no opinions, no spin. Just tell it straight. Stop telling people at home what to think. The American people are much smarter than you give them credit for. Tell them the news without the spin, the way we used to do it, without the opinion, without the scare tactics, and let the people at home decide for themselves what to think. Without a credible, unbiased fourth estate, the First Amendment crumbles and our republic fails. We can do better as journalists, the entire lot of us. It's our obligation to do better. Let's seek the truth, research, dig, investigate, find the answers, hold the people in power accountable for their actions and their words. Our country needs that right now, more than ever. The world needs that right now. Be brave. Do something. I did.